So yeah, we're doing payments. We're using this Braintree sandbox. We're just kind of looking for our keys. So I went to my user, scroll down here, API keys, token encryption keys, and click on the view authorizations. And these are the ones we're going to use. But we're going to need to add these to our project. So as I said, I'm going to do this on my starter project. So you can do this on your starter project as well. So let's go ahead and open that up. Okay. Sweet. Okay. So there's going to be, a front end part to this and a back end part. So let's go ahead and let's go ahead and add some libraries that we're going to use for this. So as far as React is concerned, and I'll slack these out. We're going to add this Braintree web drop-in and the Braintree drop-in React. So this is a wrapper component for the Braintree web drop-in. Let's go ahead and run that. I could also, like, if, just to do some branching too, I could do a get, since I'm on my starter project. I haven't worked on this for a while, so I might want to make sure, nothing's been changed. It looks like something has. It's this test.js. So I could just go see what that is. Don't really need that. I could just go ahead and undo that change, which will just delete that file. Cool. So that's gone. So yeah, I'm on this master branch. If I was just starting this off, I would also maybe do a git pull origin master. But it's my own project, so I really want to expect anything to have changed. But I can do a git checkout -b. Let's call this Braintree. Cool. So now once again, I'm on a separate branch, trying to just make this, just using branches to keep my master clean. Forget if I have this up on, yeah, I do have like a Heroku for this too. But we can go ahead and get started on this. So I'm going to go ahead and run this in there. Add those packages. Oh, I did something wrong. Does anyone know what I did wrong? Let's look at my code and look at my commit. Oh my gosh.
Oh, 766. That's not great.
That's not right. I'm glad I just did a check.
Yeah.
I made sure my status was this was not, I totally unintentionally did all of this, but so I'm glad I did a get status and checked out to a branch, and I knew I haven't changed anything. I just ran one line in my terminal and now I have 766 changes. And I said, I knew I did something wrong. And then, but does anyone, this is kind of like a little bit of a hint. Does anyone know what I did wrong? I mean, it was just this one command that I ran. So it has something to do with this.
You're supposed to run that in your client?
Yes. So why when I run it, when I don't run it in my client, do I get 766 changes? What is it really like adding? If I look at all of these things, most of these, the majority of these are in like the node modules folder. I do have a package JSON that's been modified. Okay, and my yarn lock. Cool. So what I need to do, and once again, I'm so glad I just made sure everything was up to date, is I want to undo a lot of this stuff. So my package JSON, normally I would just delete this, but I don't want to delete my package JSON because I want these other changes in here because they have my Heroku stuff in here. So I need my package JSON in here. I just don't need this stuff in here. So I can click this back arrow to discard changes. Sweet. So that gives my package JSON back to the state it was before I ran that command. Everything else here, my yarn lock, it has this U, meaning it's untracked, meaning it's been added. So this stuff I'm safe to delete. So I could also just hit undo, and this says this will be deleted forever because it's going to delete this file and there's no way you can get it back. So you got to be careful when you hit delete file because that will be gone. Now the rest of the stuff is in my node modules and I don't want to go through and undo 764 things. So I can just go to my node modules folder and go ahead and delete that. Cool. Now I can see my source control. I can see that, now I'm kind of back to the state, where nothing's been done. Cool. So now I can do the right thing and cd into client and run that command again. So here I only have 2 changes. If I look at my changes, I have the package JSON, so it's added those 2 libraries, and it's updated the yarn lock. Why don't I have all those things in my node modules file? Did it not add it? Like what's going on there? Like why you see what I'm saying? Like why when I ran that yarn ad in my Rails, I had 700 changes, but when I ran it in my client, I don't see all that stuff. So I could go to my client.
Yeah, it's all in the node modules, right?
Yeah, it's there. There it is. There's those 2 things added. There's all the files are going to be inside of here and all their dependencies. So why isn't this getting added? Well, that's because if I'm in my client folder and within my client folder, I look at my .getignore, I'm ignoring my node modules folder. If I look at the getignore in my Rails app, it's not ignoring the node modules folder. So that's why it's not adding them. And yeah, this node modules, like this gets big. Yes, these, and yeah, someone was having an issue storing like their DPL stuff to iCloud. And this has happened before with other cohorts. You don't want to save this to iCloud because these node module folders, they actually get pretty big. Like if I were to look at like, I really need to remove those like driver's license pictures on my computer, but if you were to look at like the like the size of this DPL demo. Like, so this is like the folder we've been doing for this whole course. It's probably going to take a while to calculate the size. So maybe I could go in and like just do like week 7. Let's see if that one is quicker. It's taking a second. Maybe I go in and just like look at like cat Tinder. Like one cat, cat Tinder app is just, that's like 330 megabytes. That's a pretty big file. Yeah, week 7, does week 7 not have that much? That's almost a gig. Maybe week 7 doesn't have that much, but yeah, week 7 only has 2 folders. So, but you can start to like, these can get big, and it's really because of your node modules folder. That's like what is really probably taking up most of that. See, my cat Tinder is 330 megabits. Like node modules is, you know, 95% of that. So this is stuff you don't want to store, and you don't want to store this on like GitHub. You don't want to store this on iCloud. What we do is we store what we need in like this is why we have this package JSON. This is going to tell us what we need to download. So this is the file we save to GitHub. And then when we do a yarn, we go download it for the project. Still calculating, but I bet you this is like, I don't know, 15, 20 gigs. So anyway, cool. So let's go ahead and get this working. So now that that's going, I'm going to go ahead and start. I'm going to CD back into my Rails part, and I'm going to start my Rails server, Rails s-p 3001, and yarn. So let's also kind of think about this. If I'm following the notes in Neo, the Neo notes is using semantic UI React. I don't think, I can't remember what I have in here. Let's look. I'm using React Bootstrap. So a lot of the times when you might be using like a tutorial or something, it's not going to match your exact use case, right? I'm sure you're starting to find this with your portfolio projects, right? You'll pick a third-party library and you'll try to get it working, or you'll find like a tutorial, but like it's not exactly what you need. But let's kind of look at some code and maybe think about how we could get this to work. So first of all, let's look at, and like say for instance, this one is also using class components. So let's say this was like a tutorial we were looking at, or like an example of how to get Braintree working. I would look at this component and I would try to pick out what are the important parts. So I kind of ignore the stuff from semantic and would look at, you know, these parts from Braintree, because I think those are the important parts. And just by looking at like someone's code, I could see, oh, there's a Braintree drop-in component that needs this Braintree object from the web drop-in. Looks like it needs a token, and it has a handle payment method and a render submit button. So other things I could do would be like actually go look at go to Braintree. There, go to their docs. And look at their docs to see maybe an example. See if we can see the code on that. That doesn't have the code. Do they have a code sandbox? So I could kind of just like look on this, like on, you know, their events, and, you know, just have this. I could also, I don't know why this basic example doesn't go to some code. It's just an image, but that's kind of funny. So what this really gives us is, this is just going to give us this UI. This is what this component does. It's really not much about the functionality. It gives us this nice UI. So let's go ahead and just, you know, then go with like this other tutorial and try to like figure out how to make it work. So what I would do if I'm like trying to piece together tutorials or piece together things, I'll look at the library, I'll look at the tutorial, and then, you know, just try to get this working. I might go look at code sandbox, but I'm going to take these two imports. So I'm going to make it, let's just make a component for this, and we'll call it Braintree drop. So as it is in the notes. So we'll go source components. Let's see, where do I want to put this? Shared.
Wouldn't this be like an authorized component? Or would they not have to be logged in? There's just up to preference.
Yeah, they don't need to be logged in. If someone wants to give me money, I don't care if they're logged in.
Good point.
You probably would want them to be logged in, but because you'd want them to be tracked, but
Yeah.
it's not like it has to be.
Okay.
But yeah, so I guess we could, we'll make it unprotected just so we can, hey, give me, this will be a hey, give me money app. So I thought it had like a pages component or pages file in here. Oh, this one might not be is this my finished starter project? Oh, well, anyway. I'm going to do this just, well, actually, yeah, I have my home protected. Where do those live? Oh, what? I guess they're in here. Okay. I'm just going to do this in my home class. Or I could make a new file if you want. Braintree.drop, but I'll just do this in my home, in this home file. Or actually, if you're doing this on your starter project, let's maybe just do this in the new file. We'll call this like a Braintree demo. Cool. Import React from React. That's not the right, but okay. And then let me just. Now, have you come across this yet, where you've seen an example, but it's a class example, class component, And you're like, damn it. Have you ran into that issue?
Yeah. It's frustrating.
It is, I still recommend, like, you need to know class components. Just practicing writing some, or use an opportunity like that when you do run into it to make it work. So I'm not going to write this as a class component. I'm going to write this as a functional component. So I can start this out pretty simple by just like rendering this Braintree drop-in component. So let's do that. I think that's pretty easy to take out of this class component. So const Braintree. So my function return. Even maybe before I do that, I want to just render this as a route. Wait, export default. Save that so I can get this set up in like my nav bar. I'm just going to do this as a non-protected route. All right. So there I can have that. So I have my link. Now I go to my app.js and just register that there. So if I'm looking at my changes, oh, what the hell? Why is this DS store thing popping up? Damn, I haven't seen that for a while. All right, anyway. I'm gonna throw that in my Git. Dude, where did that, has anyone seen that before? That is so, that
Seen
used
that
to,
like once.
why is that not? That is my Git ignore. Okay, I guess I just threw that in the other one. That might also be because I did the yarn start in the wrong folder and then it like just recently then applied it. But yeah, you can throw that in your git ignore. Okay, so we have our package JSON. We don't need to look at it. So in our app.js, I've just added my component and a route for that component. I've just stubbed out a pretty simple component and added it to my navbar. Cool. So now I should be able to go to Braintree, and there we go. There's my component. So now let's do some good old-fashioned copying and pasting, which I'm sure you do a lot of when you're using third-party libraries and like tutorials and that kind of thing. So I'll go back to like the tutorial, and I'll also Slack this out. Maybe I'll just Slack out this whole thing so you can, I'll just do this one. Okay. So then I'll go ahead and throw that in there. Well, I probably need this Braintree so I can import that. Is it not auto importing? Nope. Okay, so I'll do these two imports as well. Oh, I need one more. I need this one. That needs an I. Cool. All right, so now I'm getting this error. I've kind of copied everything, but I'm still getting an error. What is, well, I'm getting a couple errors. I'm getting a, token is not defined. And this render submit button is not, or this Braintree submit button is not defined. So this might happen when you're going through a tutorial and kind of copy and pasting stuff. We got to kind of make this work. There's also another thing that's kind of broken in here too. So let's maybe think about this. So it looks like we need some sort of token. So something I could also do is once again, go back to the Braintree. I'm going to go to this one, just Google this. That I don't want that. I want this. It's going back to their docs. This one seems a little. Like this one's a little outdated. This is always fun using outdated stuff. So I think the problem with this is what, well, not the problem, but so this React library is utilizing this one, probably this Braintree drop-in React, or Braintree drop webbin. So I could look at their package JSON and see kind of what they're using. So they have that Braintree web drop-in. So that's probably the main one they're using. Like they're just wrapping that one. So they're just trying to provide like a React wrapper for that. Maybe we could even find like a better one. Braintree drop-in React components. See if there's a better one we could find. We could go to like Code Sandbox. See, this one's like more of the bigger library. This one's being maintained. This one has like a lot of users, but this one's not like written in React. It's just JavaScript. Does that make sense? But well, you'll have a lot of these libraries that do stuff like this. It's kind of like when we did charting, there was like that D3 library, and then someone wrote a React library to utilize the D3 library, but made it more Reacty. It's the same thing with File Pond. When we did File Pond, there was the File Pond React library that wrapped the File Pond library. So it's always a little, when you're using some of these React libraries that are wrapping the more core library, these can be a little harder to use. And this Braintree React one that we're trying to use, it looks like it's a little out of date or just not maintained, and the documentation is not great. But because I think like, so for instance, there's like this token prop that we're trying to pass it. or authorization token. If I look for that here, that's not to be found in their documentation. Let's see if it's in here. Where is that? Well, I'm going to do this. Let's just create a string for now. Let's just see if we can get this working, because I feel like this is, I don't know, this is weird, but let's just go with it. So I'm going to just for now, just hard code a string. We have this render submit button. Dude, I really feel like, does this even have a render submit button in their docs? What am I doing wrong here? All right. Oh, I'm looking at the wrong library. Okay, that would do it. Sorry, this is not the right docs. That would be my first problem. Braintree drop in React. There we go. Yeah. It's like, what the hell? Where are these props? Okay, so we have the authorization token. And then, yeah, we have this render submit button. There we go. So use a custom component for the submit button. This takes props on click and is disabled. So let's maybe hold off on that for now and text. But let's go ahead and I'm going to copy these. So these are the ones we're going to want to use. So, right, we have this Braintree one that takes in the that Braintree thing from Braintree. We have the render submit button that we're going to look at. Let's see if I can just comment that out for now. And then we have the authorization token. And then we also have the handle payment method. So there we go. There's other props we could do, but let's just kind of stick with these and see if we can get this working. So I'm going to save this. Once again, I'm getting this can't resolve.braintree submit button because it's looking for this file right here. So let's just comment that out. By inspect console. Cool. So now I'm getting this there. Can't read properties undefined handle payment method. Line 13. What's going on here?
Doesn't know what this is.
Yeah, it's this dot is confusing because this is not a class component. So I could get rid of this. That would be the first thing. And now I get a more clear error. Handle payment is not defined. Cool. Well, I need to define that method. And this is where I could also go look back at maybe the docs. So handle payment method, it looks like we might get some props. So I could throw this in here. But if I was pasting from the docs in, because remember the docs, it's a class component. I get this again, handle payments not defined. It's like, what? I just defined it. Remember with a class component, you don't need the const, but with functional components, we need to declare that as a const. Cool. Now we are getting something. It says purchase. That's just kind of their default button. But we can give it our own button. So it's kind of like we have something working. Cool. So we're kind of getting there. So what I could do is now try to get this render submit button working. Like, what is this? What can we do here? So let's look at this. First of all, just by the name, what do you think this does?
Probably renders the submit.
Yeah. So this renders the submit button. So we could give it a custom component for the submit button, and the custom component takes props on click is disabled, takes these props on click is disabled and text. Okay, so let's kind of think about what that might mean. So let's make a component. Let's do it right here. I'm just going to do it in the shared folder. So I'm going to call this Braintree submit button. JS. Import. Oh, we go. Let's do this const Braintree submit button equals. Now this says in those instructions, it takes these props. Okay. So I'm writing a component that takes those props. And now we can go ahead and write our own custom component with that. Now, why is it on click is disabled and text? Well, that's just because that's how they are, expecting that component. It's kind of like how they're defining it. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and grab like a button component from semantic. Or let's just do whatever. Yeah, button. Because now we can draw like this is us, or let's say we want to do our own custom button. That's why we're doing this, that they give us an option to do our own custom button. So I can do div, I could do like a style, like, yay, I want to write my own custom button, like background is, I don't know, purple. Color is like, I don't know, a border radius 5 pixels. Just making a very obnoxious button. Cool. And then on here, I can have my button. I can do a on click equals the on click to me that was given. That's going to like that props it's going to take. Actually, maybe I do want a button. I'm going to have this be a button because the other thing I can do is because a button is going to have has this disabled attribute, and I can set that equal to is disabled. I can throw the text prop here. There we we can export default. Braintree, not that one, Braintree submit button. So I wrote a component that takes a non-click, is disabled, and this text prop. Now I can use this is disabled because what Braintree is going to do is it's going to tell me, hey, is this form disabled? And then I can use that, you know, in my component, because, well, I could also maybe do something else. Like maybe I don't want to disable my button. Maybe I could do like my own custom thing. So this is one of the ways, like these libraries able to not give you a way to like customize the default behavior. Say disable. Cool. Instead of using like their default button. So now in here in my Braintree demo, I can go ahead and import this now, since I've actually made it. Did I not do the right import? Does not match. Okay, maybe I spelled something wrong here. So let's do from dot Braintree submit button. And see now how it's saying the disabled right now. So a lot of these components, they have like these render blank methods, and you can tell them how you want to render, you know, the thing. And so this library is like, hey, you can give me a render submit button, or I have a render submit button prop. If you give me a component that has a on click event, or you give me a component and I'll give you this on click event is disabled text prop, and then you can use that in your component however you want. So maybe I don't want that. I just want to use the is disabled for, you know, to disable my button. So now I have my purple button. It says purchase. That's their default text, but I can't click on it because it knows it's not abled right now. It's not clickable right now. And the reason it's not clickable right now is this authorization token is not valid. So we need to do that. Cool. So let's go get that set up. So I think one of the big points here is that, like, what I'm really doing here is I'm using this third-party React library, and sometimes these can be a pain to work with, because you really have to kind of go in and experiment, you know, because I just didn't want to like have me copy and paste the code and like be like, oh, here it is working. I kind of wanted to go through and like go through some of the struggles with you. So as you know, when you are going through your portfolio projects and it takes you like 2 or 3 hours to get the calendar or something or whatever component working, you just realize that's like part of the process. It's not sometimes easy getting this stuff working, because you might not have like this nice step-by-step thing of like, here's how to do this. So cool. But we're kind of getting there. So let's go ahead. So now we do need to kind of get the token working. So trying to think here. So what we could do to maybe just see if we can get this working is And then we'll see how to like figure this out with our backend. But let's just see if we can hard code the authorization token. So go to your Braintree and let's see if we can grab the right token. So
Is this the same as like our authenticated user token? Or is this different?
this is not going to be this is not going to be your user token, because remember,
Okay.
this is not a protected route.
Right, right.
So this is going to be it's more think of it in the lines of when we did Cloudinary. It's like it's your token for like to post to Cloudinary.
Okay.
Cool. So what I want to do is go to my Braintree account and grab, my one of these keys. I think it's this one. But let's see if I can pull this one. I don't think it's my public key. It might, well, maybe it's, I'm going to try this one and just throw this inside of here.
Wait, which key is it? Is it public or private?
It's this tokenization key.
Oh, I don't see that one.
Do you need, if you don't have one, there should be this generate new tokenization key.
Maybe I'm on the wrong page.
Yeah, so go to my user and then the API keys, token key, encryption keys,
Okay.
view, and then the view authorizations.
Okay, cool.
And then let's go ahead and go back there. That one might not be it. So go Braintree. Nope. Oh wait, yeah, there it is. Okay. So you see how now that works. It's like if I give it the right key, and this would be something, if this wasn't a sandbox, I'd not want to like share this. But so if I don't give it the right key, it's not going to load that that card UI. But now that it does, now we can do like a console.log. Let's log our payload. Let's refresh. There we go. And so I can do something like 41111. Give it a date, 02/18. It should. This one might not be a valid card number. Let's see here. So something, yeah, it does do, like it will give me, it will say stuff like this, like, hey, the card number is not valid because for some reason that's not a valid number. We can give it a date. So let's do, 12/2/24. And, it gives me that UI, but it also gives me, no, I don't want to add that. I'm going to get rid of this button, this purple. It's just so obnoxious. Let's do steel blue and color white. Cool. So yeah, so I can come in here, give it a number, and then an expiration date. Yeah, so if I give it like an invalid, date, she'll say it's not valid. So I need to make sure, it's in the future. And it gives me that UI. And then if I were to inspect, there's that payload. And this is something we're going to need to send. So the payload that we're getting back is it has some of this information about the credit card and some other stuff like the nonce and things like that. So now on the, I've got it kind of set up on the front end ish. It's not like 100% there, but I have that kind of working. Cool. So let's now go to the back end and do this. So we could do a couple things on the back end. Let's go ahead and maybe set up kind of like we did with our trying to think of the word cloudinary. I'm going to add some more in my environment example, we can add some things here. So we're going to add some more keys here. So in this .env example, I'm going to add these things because these are the keys we're going to add, and I'll select these out. So I add these to my .env example just to show, hey, these are what's needed. And then I'm going to go into the env and actually fill those out. I'll just do them here for now so you can see them, but you're going to need to add those to the env. So what you do is you go to your Braintree account, wherever it is. Where did it go? So there's my public key. That in there. And then view your private key. Again, if this was actually my account information, I don't want to share this, but it's fine. Because someone could destroy my sandbox, which is not really a big deal, but whatever. And then so for the tokenization key, throw that right there. You can leave that the same, the environment, because that's just the sandbox. The merchant ID is right here.
Wait, do these have to be in a string?
I don't think so.
Like how they,
I think you
okay.
just do it like that. But yeah, the ones with the actual values, you want those in your .env file. And I'm going to do that now, but I'm not going to share that because I have some other stuff in there. So throw that in your .env file with the actual values. Cool. So those are now in my env file. So now I can just I don't actually need these now in the example. Because I do not want to, even if it's just like a sandbox, you do not want to push keys up to GitHub. Because there's like crawlers that look for keys. So I'm not going to throw those up in there to GitHub. Cool. But they are in my .env. So we're going to need to add a gem as well. Gem Braintree. I had a gem. Well, let's restart my server after this. We're gonna So we add the gem and then we'll set up a file for this. So I'll select out this command. We're just creating a braintree.rb file in our initializers folder. Just gonna run this. So you could run that command, or you could go to in your app config initializers, new file, braintree.rb, or you could run that command to create that. And then inside of here, you throw that. Throw that outside. And so that will get the environment variables that we set up in our .env file. Now, just to note, you do need this .env Rails gem added to set that up. And then once again, if you were to push this to production, you'd want to add those keys like you did with Cloudinary to Heroku. And if it was Heroku, you'd probably be adding like the keys you would be adding would probably not be the ones from here because they would not be your sandbox keys. You'd probably go set up like an actual Braintree. But for your portfolio projects, you could use the sandbox. Cool. So this stuff was like is like the exact same thing we did with Cloudinary. It's like we set up some environment variables, then we have kind of like this config file that's going to use those and kind of set those up behind the scenes. And we added a gem. So I'm going to do one more command. Let's generate a controller. So we'll handle it like a controller that maybe like can give us back a token or handle a payment. So just run that in your terminal. I'm going to stop my server. And then you can have the skip routes inside of there. And then I'm going to do a bundle because we added a gem. And then we can do a Rails. Let's start up our server again. Cool. All right. And then from here, what we can do, I'm going to open this up in code. I'm going to delete these routes because I threw in the skip routes in the Slack, so that would have ignored those. So we can ignore those for now. I'm going to delete those. Cool. But let's go ahead and just add these in here. So we're going to do these in our namespace API. So I'm going to do a get request to Braintree token. Show how we can do a path to actually grab our token from our backend. So that's going to go to our Braintree controller to a token method that we'll make. And then we had one other. We're going to do a post payment. So this will handle our payment. And that can go to Braintree, to our Braintree controller, to the payment method. So let's just look at some of the changes we made with Git. So we've added, we've added our keys to the env example, but more importantly to the .env with the actual values. But that's not in our Git histories, so we're not going to look at that. We've added the Braintree gem, and we ran bundle. We've added a Braintree controller that you have these two routes or these two methods, token and payment, that will stub out or that we'll do later. We've added 2 React projects. And one thing you can also do as you're going through, or that I can sometimes like to do when I'm going through like my Git changes, you can kind of like add these as you go through by clicking this plus button. This is like doing a Git add with the specific file. So this can be a way, like, as you're going through like the changes you made, where you're kind of like proofreading all of your changes. Cool, that looks good to me. Making sure you didn't add anything you didn't want to add. Like, there's not like extra lines being added. You're like, oops, wait, maybe I don't want to add those 4 extra lines at the end. So you're just going through and making sure the changes you made are the changes you want. I would do this when I was working at my last job. This was like before I did a commit. This is what I would do. I'd go through and make sure that through each file, making sure that it was grabbing the changes that I made and that I didn't accidentally add anything. Cool. So if I look at my nav bar, it's looking good. My routes. It might seem a little tedious, but like it's worth it. It takes like a couple minutes, but then you're checking. It's just you're doing it's kind of forcing you to do a little proofread. Cool. And then I'd also see I have like one unsaved file somewhere. If I can't find it, I'll just do like a save all. And yeah, it looks like there was nothing really changed. So cool. So now I'm ready to do a, I'll just do a git add. Git commit. Some Braintree setup stuff. Could do a git push origin. Braintree. I'm not done with this branch, but I can still push it up to GitHub. So if people want to so if you wanted to look at it, you could throw this in Slack. You could go to the starter project and, look at the Braintree branch, and that would have the changes. Cool. Yeah, I'm not ready to do a pull request, so I'm not going to do that yet. So we still need to do some stuff on the back end. Most importantly, we need to, in our Braintree controller, we need to fill out these 2 methods. So we'll do a method that will give back a token to the front end, and we'll also do our payment. So we still got a bit to do, but let's take a break and come back. Let's just call it 11:05. Does anyone need any code or anything? I know this is a little sporadic, but I kind of sometimes just like going off script and going through maybe more of a natural process of coding where it's not just hey, here's all the steps for you, nice and neat, because hopefully you're getting that experience of with your portfolio project that it's a little more I don't know, you're kind of picking from different resources. Especially when you work with third-party libraries, it's always can always be a little challenging. So, cool.
Yeah, I like this way, doing it. It's a lot more realistic.
Yeah, it's nice when it's all laid out, but that's not the real world. So
Yeah,
it can be. It's good if you're like learning the basic concepts to just have it laid out. But anyway, cool. Yeah, take a break. Let me know if you need anything. Okay. I think what I'm gonna do for this, since we're kind of like going about this in a different way, I'm gonna just kind of show what the back end is gonna look like. And I'll explain it, but then we'll also with that, we'll kind of on our own try to figure out what that means about how we need the front end to work. So we're gonna kind of have like the back end dictate what we need to do in the front end. So, and let me slack this out so you have it as well. Okay. So this token method, this just gives us a token, we need to set up, that the UI that we saw, that is this token. I mean, that will give back that token that makes that credit card UI thing work. Okay. Now for the payment method, there's more going on here. So, and because sometimes this is maybe what you get, you would go through maybe the Braintree Ruby gem documentation, see something like this, and be like, okay, this is how I get the back end to work. And then we'll kind of think about how we'll kind of, this will force us to follow it this way in the front end. So when we send, if just by looking at this, it looks like I need a amount and I need a nonce. If you remember, we saw that nonce in the payload when we had in our handle submit. So, and a nonce, this is just kind of like a random number. So, but this random, it's going to like kind of have the information of the user. So this is important. It kind of grabs that through the credit card and the expiration date. So we'll use that. So we're going to get a couple. So we need to send the like how much we want to charge the card and then that nonce. And then we have this options. Right now we're just doing this submit for settlement true. That's going to like charge the card right now. Cool. And then we have these cases. So this is, success. We're going to get back the transaction ID. And then there's kind of these two ways we could fail here. So this first failure is going to be, probably something is wrong with the card. And we're going to get back those errors. Maybe we can kind of like handle some of those errors and look at some of those. But if not, we also have another error, like another error. So so here's how you can look at this, even without looking at, the docs. Just kind of think about it like, if result.successful question mark or result.success, we're going to get back the ID. If the result has a transaction, that means it tried to occur, but that's going to be something is wrong with the card. If not, then this is going to be something went wrong, like not on Braintree's end. Probably like, this is a me problem, not a them problem. Maybe I had like I don't know, spelling error up here or something. But it's pretty much, yeah, it's not Braintree's problem at this point. Cool. So let's kind of use these two methods. So just by looking at this, I'm kind of expecting, okay, you know, if I need to give this method, you know, just an amount and a nonce. And then, you know, this should give me back, you know, an ID or like a transaction ID. If successful. Cool. So now we have that kind of figured out. So now let's go to the front end and try to use these two, or let's first try to grab the token. So if I go to my Braintree demo component, instead of just, you know, hard coding this, let's do a use effect. And we could also, let me pull up the lesson plan too, just to kind of compare. Maybe we'll do this via the, like, let's say we're looking at this through the lesson plan and it was done in a class component. Let's kind of think about how we might need to change it to make it work as like a functional component. So where, I just need to find it. I don't think that's more the finished version. Okay, let's say it looks something like this. So here's our Braintree drop component. It looks like we have some state, some loaded state, and then a token, which is set to an empty string. Looks like on a component did mount, there's this axios.get and then this .then. Okay, that's different too from what we're used to. And then we have like this if loaded, you know, we do our Braintree segment. If it's not loaded, then we do our dimmer. So has anyone run across the .then? I mean, we have talked about this, but what do we use in place of the .then? .catch syntax.
Try catch.
Try catch is part of it, so that's definitely part of it. We do the try catch block.
We use the async await, right?
Yeah. So we do an async await, and then we do a try catch block. This one's technically not catching anything because it doesn't have a .catch. So this would be like there'd be no catch involved in this one. We probably want to do that, but yeah, we use the async await. So for component did mount, what do we use instead? Because this is now we're thinking about React. This is a life cycle method. How do we do something on mount in a class? In a functional component?
Use effect.
Yeah, use effect. And then we have, here's like a state object, but how do we do that in a class component? Or sorry, a functional component. This is how you do it in a class component, obviously. But what do we use?
Use state.
Use state, boom. So we can kind of, yeah, we can use kind of those things. So it looks like we have, like if I were to copy this, just this part. Okay, so there's my state. Well, that's not how I want to do it. I want to do it like this. I'm going to say use, let's do a const loaded. Looks like I need, because I would just see this, oh, it looks like I need some loaded state. Okay, so loaded. And then I need a way to set that state, set loaded equals use state. What should this default value be?
False.
False. Yeah, because that's what they're putting, like for the class component, they're using false as a default value. So, okay, I'll use false. And then I can go create some token state 2. Oh. And then I'll have that be an empty string because it looks like that's what they are using for that. Cool. They have a component did mount, so I'm going to do my use effect. There's my callback function. There's the empty array, so it only runs on mount. Cool. Now I can do my get token function. Yeah, this, instead of doing the dot then as they did, I'm going to do the async await. But I could, like, you know, I mean, let's just kind of copy this. So, okay, and try to figure out this. So what I would do is I would set this like let response. Maybe I'll just keep this in like comment this out and just kind of rewrite it. Okay, so I'm not using the dot then, I'm using async await. So I just grabbed this response a little differently, which I think is more readable because it is. So I'm going to grab the response like this, let response equal await axios.get API brain token. Cool. What is this line doing? This is other things that I think happen when you look at other people's code or from documentation. You might see something like this and like line by line, and then you see it something like this.
That's passing the token as, so like in the back end, it's data, right? And then they're passing it that token value, which is the same, and then setting that equal to res.
Not quite. No, this
That's
is,
what
yeah,
it
this
looks
is,
like. I'm still very confused.
if you let's let me do this. This might, just to make this a little cleaner, let's just say I had one line, and you don't know of anything else. I'll just say there is, actually, I'll give you these two. I'll give you these 2 lines. Now, and let's just also just call this like X, like you don't even know what this route is. So don't really think about this context of like the Braintree stuff. Just kind of think about these 2 lines of code, but in particular, this line of code. Because sometimes you run into like a line of code and you're like, wait, what is this really doing? This would be like a good like interview question on JavaScript, because this is just more JavaScript question. You technically don't even need this line right here. Like I could just ask, what is this doing? So what I would say, this is object destructuring. So res is res would be a variable. And what I'm doing is I'm pulling off the data key from res, renaming it to token. So this would be like the same thing as me saying like const token equals res dot data. And I would expect, you know, kind of, making the assuming res looks something like this. It's an object that has a data key on it, some value, but this could be anything. But that's what I'm doing here. I'm destructuring the data key off of this object, renaming it to token. I could do it like this on line 53. Let's say it would look something like this. So if I just had this would kind of be the complete example, these 3 lines of code. So I could have a res variable that would be an object with the data key. That would be the string ASDF. So here I would destructure data, rename it to token off of the response. And so then I would have a variable named token. And if I console.log that, that would be ASDFA.
So this is pretty similar to what we do with like use context, right? Where we destructure
Yes.
what
Yeah.
we're
So
getting from. Okay.
yeah, because so you do something like use context. This would be like kind of this same thing. Well, maybe I'm expecting use context to return an object that has a data key, which I'm going to rename token.
Okay, that makes sense.
So yeah, the use context, yeah, just better return a object, which it does. The object yours, so when we do use context with the auth context, that returns an object that has like a user, it has your handle login functions. You're registered because in our auth provider, there's that object. We have a user object, set user, handle login, handle logout. And then you could destructure those. From the use context. Context. You could also, it's also done this way where you just hey, throw it into a variable. And then I could do x.user. I could destructure it, or I could just set, or just grab the whole object and throw it into an x variable, or whatever I wanted to call it. So being able, challenge as you're getting a little more experience with coding, really start to ask yourself, what is this one line of code doing? Try with those cases, see if you can just start explaining to yourself line by line exactly what's happening. Because that's going to help you okay, well, I could do the same thing right here. Or I don't even okay, why? I'd be well, I don't maybe like how they're doing that. I don't need to do that step. I just want to set my token to the res.data and load it to true. So I could use their example and be I don't really like that, how they do that. I'm going to set token to be res.data and set loaded be true. Because they're setting, I can't use this dot set state. That's something I need to use my hooks, my use state hooks to set the data. But I don't need this line const data token. I can just set my token to be res.data. But if I did have it, then it would just be set token. So when you're copy and pasting code, or kind of using examples, don't feel like you have to take their code exactly as it is and use it. You can maybe make it fit a little more cleanly to yours. Cool. So there we go. So I've taken their component did mount, and you know it looks different, but really it's doing the same thing. It's just we have these two pieces of state loaded and the token. And you know, this is something we've done many times. Like we want to grab something, we want some loaded state, we want to do this on mount. We've done this a lot. So looking at this, oh, they have loaded state, they have a token. On mount, they do their axials call, and when it's done, they set their token and then they set loaded to true. That's what we do here. On component to mount, we get our token. Once we get that response, we set the token, and then we can set that loaded to true. Sweet. And then I can come back now. Like something else I might see here, they have like this if else statement. It's like, I don't need an if else statement. I can use this. I can say if not loaded. Spinner. You know, because they might be doing an if else statement because like they're trying to do this in like a render function. I can't do that this way. So it's like, and then also I wouldn't want to, this is just cleaner. I can just, hey, if I'm not loaded, let's just return the spinner. And then if this doesn't hit, then we can just return that one. So I need an if else. Cool. So now we get some errors, use state and use effect. Axios are not defined, so I need to import those. There's my use state. I don't need my use context. I need my use effect. Oh, it also looks like this token now I can throw here instead of hard coding that. And Axios is not defined. Braintree. Cool. And there it goes. Now it's working. And now I'm grabbing the token from my backend and loading it up. Cool. And then as we saw, like, so I throw in a credit card number and then an expiration date, hit purchase. See, there's that nonce that I want to send. So payload.nonce. Probably would also make sense to have, like, I don't know, an amount in there or something, right? So let's kind of think about that. Like, let's throw in a way, just so we can have, yeah, like a payment amount. I'm trying to think how we want to do this. Payment method. Okay, so let's just put in, let's just do like a input right here. Cool. And then let's create some state for this. Amount, set amount. Let's just have that default to 100. Why not? So we can have value. I'm probably not, I don't even need to like, we could set up so we could change this, but let's just hard code this right now. So amount. I mean, sure, let's just, it's not like it's that hard. Let's do a non-change. Take our event e.target dot, or sorry, set amount to be e.target value. Okay. All right, refresh. There. So, you know, we could have our amount, we could change it. I mean, that might be weird. Like, I'm trying to, I guess the WeWork, your site, you might want them to be able to change the amount. A lot of other places, it's like if it's like Amazon, you can't change the amount. It would just be like, here is the amount. I'd almost say like before you get to the credit card, they would like, I don't know. That's like a UX UI thing. But let's just say like, yeah, the amount could potentially be hard coded, which would make sense in a lot of cases. So it's like you're checking out. We come in, we add a, because what I really want to do is, you know, from what I remember, we need an amount and a nonce. So for now, I just want to see if I can console.log like an amount. And a nonce. And if you remember, this nonce was coming from the payload from this object. Payload.nonce. Couldn't I also just destructure the nonce right here and do it like that? Because the payload is just an object. If all I need is one thing from it, I can destructure the key. So that'd be another way I could write that. Let's just do it like that. So ES, that's all just another example of ES6 destructuring. So I can come in, let's refresh that just to make sure that I got that changes. All right, so I just like to use this credit card because I know it's valid. It's not like, don't worry, you could enter in your own credit card. It's not going to charge anything. And this doesn't have to be an actual valid credit. I mean, this is probably not a valid credit card, right? Because I'm throwing in a random expiration date. But it's going to like, the thing about the sandbox, it will treat it like it is one. So I can hit purchase. Cool. So there I have my amount and I have that nonce. Cool. So now I have like, right, that's the thing I need to for that. If I go to my Braintree controller, it looks like it needed that params amount and params nonce, right? Cool. So what I could do is I can now do my try to create this here. So let's, my Axios call. So I'm going to make this async. Can do a try catch. This would definitely be one where you'd want to like, you know, have some good error handling here. You know, for UI, UX. Okay. So let's go ahead and try this. I don't remember how I did it, but actually like I picked some random credit card number that like didn't work for some reason. And I don't know, I'll see if I can regenerate the error. But I actually had to like go through the error codes in like Braintree and to find out why it wasn't working. But we'll see if we hit that error again, if I can duplicate it. But here we can now try to do our Axios call. Okay, so let's go ahead and do this. So that is like the let response equal await. This was the path we just created a second ago, or like maybe 30 minutes ago. It was a post request to /API, and I already forgot payment. Okay, so API /payment. And I saw for this, I needed a amount param, so I'll send that. And then I also needed that nonce param, which would be my payload dot nonce. In the notes, it looks like this. What is the difference between doing it this way and doing it this way? Will they both work? Does one of them work?
That second one, wouldn't it give you more specific? It'd give you that specific nonce instead of just the whole payload.
Let's say, let me just pretend like, let's say the payload looks like this. So just so we can like, the payload looks like this. It has a nonce. So whatever, 1, 2, 3, and then it has like, I don't know, X, which is Y, or ABC.
Because the nonce is just the token, right?
Yeah, the nonce is, it's not really the token, it's kind of like this number, kind of like this number identifier. It's going to have the information about the credit
Right.
card. It's generated using the credit card information. So
Yeah.
so we 100% need to give the nonce. So so this is, once again, this is more like a JavaScript question though. Like, so don't really think about it in terms of, well, you could also think of like, are both of these going to work? Is one of them going to work? Are they different? So first of all, would they both work? Or I guess the most
think
important
so.
question is like, what are these two things doing? Because that's going to let you know if it's going to work or not.
Well, it's
What is-
expecting the amount and nonce, right? So if you just give it the whole payload, I mean, maybe that would work, but it's expecting specifically amount and then nonce, right?
Also, I'll tell you this. Okay, let's just say this one right here is valid. This is the valid way to send this. I do a post request API payment and I send it an amount with some value. There needs to be a value there. And then I send it a nonce with some value.
Okay.
So that works. So first of all, is this amount going to work? Don't I say I needed a value? Like what's the value? What's the amount value? Like this is an object. I need a key value. So what's the value of this?
it's whatever you put in that amount before you pay, right?
Yeah, it's this state right
Yeah.
here. So this is in a sense me doing, remember with JavaScript, I
Yeah.
have a key called amount and I'm giving it a value called amount. Well, that's my state. So if the key and value are the same, I don't need to put them. But JavaScript will do
Right.
that. So that's
Yeah,
why I
no,
don't
that
need
part
to-
makes sense.
Yeah. Okay, so then what is this ... payload doing?
Isn't that just spreading over all of the payload and all of the data within that payload?
Yeah, so if my payload looked like this, it would essentially, it's just spreading out over it. It would essentially take what's ever in my object and throw that in there.
Right.
So,
So both ways
would
would
this,
work.
so would this work?
Yeah.
Yeah, so this would work. It would just give
It's just
me
giving it
extra
more
information.
information
Yeah.
than it needs, right?
It would send X along with it. And maybe I don't need X, but it would send it in the call. This
Right.
one would, would give me the amount and would only send the nonce. So I'm grabbing the value payload. So here's the key is the nonce, and then I'm grabbing the actual value from this method.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
so they both would work. The difference would be this one, ... payload would send all the other stuff. And maybe down the road we'd want it, so whatever, let's just do that.
That makes sense. Just if you need some of the other information later on.
So yeah, I think this is where you'll get good as a code, like someone like what can make you like more like going from junior to like a mid-level developer is like not only reading line by line, but all like code is so much like a reading. Just, man, what is let doing? Okay, let's declaring a variable. What's this next line doing? Okay, I'm declaring a variable name res. Okay, what am I doing here? Okay, I'm setting this variable called res. I'm setting it equal to whatever this is. Okay, what is this? Well, I'm awaiting. Okay, so I'm awaiting for this to happen. So await is going to return a promise. So this is going to return a promise, which will resolve or reject. Okay, so what am I doing? I'm doing a post to API payments. Okay, I'm sending this an object amount. I'm doing some ES6 shortcutting here. So the key is amount, the value is amount, and here I'm spreading out over the payload. Okay, so this payload must be an object. So I'm just going to send all the, I'm just going to spread out over that object. So it's like one line of code. There's just like so much going on, right? That's like a lot. It's a lot to explain just one line of code. But and it takes practice, and then it also can take like, maybe you need to spend like 15 minutes really just like, what is going on right here? Like with just this object. Like what is this payload? What is this doing? Why don't I need a key right here? Like, and then you slowly start to like, these little parts, they become more readable. So really like, yeah, as you're getting a little more experience, really start challenging yourself to really understand like what's going on. And if there's a part of code you don't understand, take some time to understand it. Like go create a little sandbox, go create a little JavaScript file to see what's going on. Cool. So now that we have that, I'm just going to console.log the response. But I could ask you this, what might I expect this response to look like? If I don't know, I could go to my Braintree controller. Here's that response. So response.data is going to be result transaction.id. Now, I've never used, you could say you've never used Braintree, but looking at this code, you can probably infer that, oh, it's probably the ID of the transaction. So it's probably going to be some text, right? Maybe. So I could say something like transaction ID question mark, because maybe I'm not 100% sure because I haven't used it, but res.data. And error console.log error. Cool. Does that make sense how I'm saying, oh, this is probably the transaction ID? And we'll see, we'll double check just from looking at our controller. I mean, if that's not the transaction ID, I'm going to be confused what it is, but we'll see. And you see how like it could be really nothing else, because like if it fails, well, we'll see. There might also be something going on here behind the scenes if they're going to render an error. Okay, yeah, let's play, because I'm like, well, why aren't they doing like a status 422? But I bet you they are handling that behind the scenes. So let's look at that. Cool. So let's come in here. I'm going to do $100. I'm going to do 411, my lovely credit card. And then, 1223. Let's go ahead, clear. I always like to clear my console just so I know what are the most recent logs. Let's hit purchase. Transaction ID. All right, that looks like that was successful, right? Oh, wait, I think I remembered how I had it. Okay, so this looks like that was successful, right? Because I'm logging on line 28. So how do I do it? Like, maybe I want to try an error. I forget. So let's see maybe how we can do this. Braintree sandbox. This was so weird when I did it because I did it accidentally, and it was so confusing. But there's a way to generate errors, and it's like, was it through the dates? Okay. So these are some of the errors you can get back. So this is why like error handling would be important, like invalid credit card number, expired card, or their activity limits exceeded. So, you could see like a lot of these errors, you might actually they might need to try to process. I'm trying to remember how okay, I think maybe, okay, let's try this no account one. So 207. I think it had something to do with like the credit card number. So 41111 I felt like if you ended with the error, it would like not work. Oh, that's not a valid one. 210. Okay, let's try that. 210 is a card issue declined. So let's go ahead and hit purchase. Yeah, okay, so this was like, I was like doing this demo and like it failed on me. I'm like, wait, why the hell is this failing? So there's my transaction ID errors. Okay, so now I'm getting a code. But what's kind of, so the credit card number is not an accepted test number, is that? I mean, it's a 210. I thought it'd be that one. Code 8817. That did fail. Let's try a different one. Let's try 212. Okay, 411. I'm just not accept. I feel like well, anyway, there's a way to get these specific errors, but it does seem like if you end it with that number, it doesn't like it with one of the error numbers. But anyway, like there's still, to me, there's an issue with this. Why is that? Okay. One of the issues to me is that, am I getting back the text and code? I don't think it's hitting here, but something that I'm seeing is like status. I'm not getting that. This is not hitting my catch. Like this should be an error, right? If this is not a successful transaction. So something I think I need to do is in here. I'm just going to do like a status. Just do a 422 right there. Let's see if like which one's failing. Purchase. So let's do 411. 2010. 1223. So that's better. So now I'm getting that 422 error. So that's letting me know it's failing here. I also feel like I could do this like that was weird what it was rendering. Our result.errors. Okay, so then I could go here and probably do something like error response to grab that. Ten 023. So error.response, there's the data, there's the errors. And they're saying, hey, like this is not an accepted test number. Okay, cool. So there's me hitting this error. And yeah, like I said, I want to make that a status 422 so it doesn't succeed. So it doesn't in here, it was going to this log, which was bad because that's like if I get here, yeah, I'm expecting success. So I changed this to a status 422, so it would throw an error. I want to see one more thing, and then maybe if I start the card off with the 210, it will fail. That's not a valid number, 207. Maybe they changed. I swear when I like ended with this number, it like gave me back that error. See if I could do like a 40. Okay, let's try this one. One 4020. That doesn't like it. Okay, maybe not. I'm going to stop, but there is a way. So these are a lot of the errors you're going to get if this fails. So you get back the text and the code, it would match here. This would be the text. This would be the code. And you could also grab the message, which would kind of explain why there's failing. And you could imagine like if you were like, you know, tasked with handling all of these errors with like very specific messages, that's a lot of errors to handle. But you could come up with a system where, you know, just it would show maybe the text or something. Limit exceeded. Expired card. No such issuer. And duplicate transaction. So kind of these things. Does that make sense? This is why like another reason billing can get hard is because, you know, you're going to want to handle these errors. And luckily Braintree behind this, like they're going to be doing it on the back end, but you would probably want to let your user know why the transaction did not go through. Cool. But the other thing, if I go to Braintree, like, where is my actual? I go back to my team. Where is it? Cool. If I now go back to Braintree, I actually will see I have some transactions. Because I think I've sent a couple. This doesn't happen like instantaneously. This can sometimes take a second, but I can see, hey, today I've had, you know, a transaction. $100. Now, if I go back and like do $1 million, like $10,000, have a successful transaction, it's going to show up in Braintree. You might have to wait a second or like a couple minutes, but so I just did one 10,000. So in a couple minutes, I should see that transaction here. So it's kind of like, it's a nice, even though this isn't real money, it's giving you this real, like it's giving you like real world, the ability to work with like kind of this real world data. Cool. Does that make sense?
That's pretty cool.
Cool. So yeah, and if I think I'm going to stop here, but like, you know, in the notes, like we could do something and like right here, you know, we could do like a redirect to like a transaction page, or like, you know, and show user the ID. So, you know, there's more we could do here, but at this point, like we have successfully made the request. We've gotten the ID. We've done some error handling. I really wish I could. I thought it was just by throwing that code into the last digit that it would like trigger the error, but they might have changed that. Sweet. But yeah, that should give you what you need to and like for like I said, for the WeWork group, this would be enough. It's if in your app, you know, you had a way for someone to, you know, they could enter the amount or however they do that, but you have this UI where they can enter in a credit card number. There you go. Now you might need to, when you get that transaction ID back, you might want to store, you know, transaction ID to your database. Right? Do you have a transaction model or something like that? Don't you?
We have like it's like a donation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when you get this, if they were to like purchase something, you know, you might want to, as part of that donation, store the like, you know, Braintree transaction ID along with the amount, which I'm sure you already have.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's a way to like grab that transaction ID and then like go grab the transaction on Braintree or like the history of it. But you wouldn't even need to do that. But that's, you know, this could be the way you could just have that set up. And if it were an actual app, you know, you could go do a lot of your testing, a lot of your development, all that air handling to handle like all those codes. And then you would just switch over from the sandbox environment to like a production environment in Braintree. So it gives you the way to do all the testing in an environment where you don't care if it's like fake credit cards, because you don't want to like test your own credit card, you know, see if it's actually working. You just want to test fake stuff. But then Braintree is like set up so once it's like real world data and real world credit cards, it will actually work. So that will get you there. Cool. Any questions on that? I will push this up to GitHub.
So would this be good to push the main branch?
Yeah. So I'm not going to do a merge request. What I am going to do is I'm going to do it kind of this way. I'm going to do a get checkout master. I'm going to do a get merge Braintree. So what I just did is on my local machine, I checked out to master, and then I took my changes from my Braintree branch on my local machine and merged them into master on my local machine. And now I could do a get push. Kind of bypassing doing a pull request. Not the way you would want to do it, but just wanted to show you can, from branches on your machine, your local machine, you can merge them into other branches by doing the get merge. It's almost like get pull request Braintree. Cool. So that should be up on master on the starter project. You could go ahead and throw, yeah, if you're following along on your starter project, you could push that up, and then you would have kind of Braintree set up, like the basics of it. I wonder if that transaction has gone through yet.
Mine went through. Wait, so what do I do with this DS store so that I'm having like merge conflicts?
Throw that in your git ignore.
Okay.
Because I feel like if you delete it, it just pops back up. It's like this weird Mac thing. So yeah, I have that in your in both of them. So I have that in my git ignore in my client app and in the git ignore in my Rails app. There is, oh wait, there is another. You can make a global git ignore and throw that in the global git ignore so it does it. Maybe we'll do that if I see that pop up again. But yeah, so I want to give you until 1 to work on to just, you know, meet up with your groups, and I'll come in and I'll check up on in the groups and just kind of, yeah, so you have like your game plan for really, so kind of think of it like this, like your app's going to get tested on Friday morning by the other group. So think about, kind of give yourself a deadline of Thursday of having where you want it to get to a point, you know, it's definitely going to have bugs. That's the whole point while we're testing. But if there's bugs you know about that are big and you think you can fix in 1 or 2 days, go ahead and fix them. So kind of think about how you can best utilize your time in the next, you know, 2 days. So project time today and project time tomorrow. Sound good? Sweet.
Cool.
Sounds great.
I'm going to break you out into rooms. Let me know. I'll just be chilling here. So let me know if you need anything. And then I'm going to close out the rooms at 1.
Okay.
Cool.